So like I said earlier on, so these are some of the goals for digital forensics. There are quite some evolving field, that is IoT. IoT is typically you being able to control things over the internet. And what are those things? Phones, laptops, AC, windows, doors, cars, anything, right? You'll be able to control all of those things over the internet is a very emerging technology. So each of these items are going to have storage means. So the question is, how do you pick up their data storage systems and be able to do digital forensic? I think one of the ones that I'm going to be touching is in terms of the drone, uh, digital conducting digital evidence for digital forensics for drones. And we're going to touch that in the course of our class. Now, these are the branches of digital forensics. So you have, I don't mind the picture I'm using, but this demonstrates the different types of forensics in tech. So we have cloud forensics. That's where, so you want to be seeing, how do you get evidence in Amazon Web Services, in Azure, in Alibaba Cloud Service, in Google Cloud Service, and the rest. How do you gather evidence from database system, MySQL Server, MongoDB, Postgres, from MySQL Server, and all of that? How do you gather evidence from a LAN network, from a point-to-point network, from a wireless network, or from a peer network, or a Bluetooth network, whatever kind of network? How do you gather evidence from that? Mobile forensics. So how do you get evidence from mobile apps, from mobile phones, from WhatsApp, from browser histories, and all of those things that you have on your phone? How do you gather evidence on that? Then the next one is computer forensics, so which is just like an embodiment of all of these aspects of forensics. Then I've talked about IoT forensics. How do you conduct forensics in Internet of Things devices? So all of these and many more are the branches of digital forensics. Now, you need to be aware that there are majorly two primary types of forensic investigation. One is public, one is private. So for those of us taking the digital forensic course, or you're under mentorship, you could inbox me, you could send me an email, you could contact me. You're going to have this slide. So I made this slide, it's a document. It's part of the text I'm working on. So these are just the excerpts from the text from the book. So you need to be aware that there are two types. So you get this document. So I will paraphrase these two types. The first one is public, the next one is private. I'll start from the private. So if we have within a company, if we have within an organization, theft or embezzlement or industrial espionage, or people going beyond what they are supposed to be doing, for instance, illegal pornography, job quickly turns into a, okay, I think I'm paraphrasing. Okay, so once we have all of these, embezzlement, industrial espionage, sabotage, and it's within the company and it affects the bottom line of the company, that's the profit of the company. Now, most of the times, the company is going to launch a private investigation. So this is going to start and it's going to sit within the company. But once it's a criminal case, right? Because at times, even when an investigation is going on, let's say, for instance, an employee starts using the office network to spy or to look at details and files and stuff of another employee. The question is, depending on how far he or she went in doing that, trying to go beyond his privacy limits. If it's not too deep, it can start and stop within the private organization. But if it's gone too deep and too bad, that can now turn into a public investigation, whereby that employee is going to now be handed over to the police, going to be handed over to the authorities. So that is where the description comes in. For example, you're investigating an employee for a potential violation of a company policies and come across this illegal pornography. This is a law against the state, not against the company, right? Kind of, sort of. So it becomes a public case. Because for this reason, as a computer forensic investigator, you should be able to handle both public and private. So it depends on where your jurisdiction is, where you're going to be functioning, whether you function within the police, the army, I've worked with teams of the guys that work with the military and the rest. So we all share ideas with respect to what the core of their work is. You have some of them that work within their corporation, that is private investigation, and you have the ones that actually work for public good, right? So all of those ones, you call them public investigation. Then for the ones that happen within the organization, you call them private investigation. And the question is, what are the tools? So if you see this image, you see quite a lot. There are quite a lot. Volatility, I can see autopsy. You have the SATNet SAR security suit. You have SNOT. I'm not going to be considering SNOT in this training. SNOT is part of the cyber ops lab for, I think, module 27 or 28 thereabout. So you can look at those labs. So it's about you gathering evidence in or you trying to gather evidence either within your network and the rest. So there are quite a lot of tools that we're going to be using that you can use because of course it's not going to exhaust all of the tools, but I've talked about it earlier on. We're going to be looking at quite a number of tools. You might want to build a forensic workstation, or you could use your Windows PC and some of the tools you're going to be using within your Linux environment. Then the next thing we're going to be looking at is legal implications. Every cybersecurity expert should not forget this law, the EU General Data Protection Regulation, right? Most countries have adopted this law, this regulation. Like my country have it as National Data Protection Regulation, Nigeria. You have South Africa, you have the UK, you have US, you have several countries adopting this particular law and domesticating it. So look at how your country is adopting this particular regulation. This regulation has to do with what's the duty or how should data be collected, be stored, be transmitted, be utilized, be analyzed. That's what the General Data Protection Regulation is about. It's an EU policy, and because you have different countries using technology of EU companies or US companies based in US or based in EU, it then means that most countries have to now adapt to that particular, because for instance, the hosting technology, the cloud technology, the IoT, the devices, the hardware, they're mostly by US companies, European companies. And if these European companies are to conform to this regulation, it then means most countries, because you use all of those stuff, you have to create a law that adapts to that particular regulation. That's why we call it a global village. So, and also make sure you check for the cybercrime law or the computer law of your country to make sure that you understand what is expected of you in terms of collecting evidence, what kind of data should you collect, confidentiality, and the rest. These are some of the legal implications of doing digital forensics. You don't just go pick up any data, start analyzing, start looking up at the data. You must make sure that you conform to the regulation of your country. Trends. I want to talk about trends a little bit. Now, for trends, there are opportunities everywhere. crime is on the increase. And because crime is on the increase, you see operating systems are now trying to encrypt, trying to update their suites and the softwares. It then means that anti-forensic techniques that individuals can use when committing crime in the cyberspace is also actually going to be increasing. So Apple, Windows, some of these companies, they're going to have encryption algorithm for their applications, for their hardware. Now, advances in hardware and software are always ongoing and present constant challenges. So doing forensic, let's say 10, 15 years ago, is not like doing forensics now. So because I could remember on the Windows 220, on the Windows 2000, or on the Windows 7, it's very easy for you to pick up a drive even and just leave it and collect data. But now, for instance, permission level, encryption, and the rest comes to play. So we need to understand these trends and using tools that are able to counter some of these new trends. So this talked about the anti-forensic techniques. Okay, talked about it. Then we'll talk about compliance and forensics. So there is this publication I love by NIST. I will share the documents in the WhatsApp on the mentorship group. So NIST have quite a lot of documentation in terms of incident response. When we are doing the cyber breach incident response course, I'm going to drop some notes in terms of incident response. These have quite a lot of publications. So you can look at the 80063, the 80066 is designed for you to comply to what has to do with data. I've talked about the GDPR. This is health. This is a US regulation on health. Then this is for payment card industry regulation. So the point is that if you are doing forensics, you need to understand this regulation, what it says about you collecting data. This has to do with payments. This has to do with health records. And this is just a framework for by the National Institute of Standards and Technology in UK. So, or rather US. So they have regulations on how data should be handled, on who should handle data, a different step-by-step process in terms of what are the steps to conducting forensics and the rest. We'll examine some of these documents later on in this course. It will help us in not just trying to run the tools, but actually understanding what we should do, how we should do it, when we should do it, and so that whatever we do is going to count at the end of the day. Okay. So in the next series, I'm going to be talking about the careers in digital forensics.